Well, hello and welcome to another episode of Either Side of Neil. Hi, I'm Christy and one half of this Trebon podcasting duo. As always, we would like to acknowledge the traditional owners on the land we are recording. For me, it's the Boonwurrung people of the Kulin Nation, and for cousin Ben, who's recording on the lands of the Kaurna Nation. We pay our respects to elders, past, present and emerging. So let me please introduce to the mic my lovely cousin Ben. Hi Ben, good morning. How are you?
G'day, Christy. As always, it's so good to talk to you and see your face. It's actually a beautiful sunny day here in Adelaide. It's been so cold and rainy and wet and just blankets, trackies, socks. But looking out the window today, it's actually stunning. So it's a perfect day. How are you?
Good. Yeah, I'm great. Thanks, Ben. I'm looking forward to an awesome weekend, and I always love it when it's record day. It's a little bit rainy here this morning, and it's still a bit grey and overcast, but I think the afternoon's going to be an absolute cracker. And tomorrow, I think we have a top of 19 or something ridiculous.
Wow. Oh, that's going to be incredible.
Yeah.
Although it's been all about the nighttime weather at the moment, staying up late watching the Tour de France.
I know. It's been
haven't seen much sun.
I know. So, in fact, I think I'm going to get out on the bike tomorrow and go and stretch your legs, blow out some cobwebs. Something.
Of the bike. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, the bike's got cobwebs because it's been, been watching the cycling, not doing the cycling.
That's it, figuratively speaking, of course. Yes, absolutely. So we've got a great interview lined up today as part of this fantastic episode. But our Fast Five with Beery blew up the internet.
Geez, it sure did, man. It blew it up. I had smoke coming out of every monitor, keyboard, the mouse was even melting. Beery, you're a bloody legend, and we absolutely love chatting to him. And the Fast Five is just doing so well. We've got people backed up, man, to be part of our Fast Five. But did you really like the video I created this time? Yeah, it was really
so
cool.
Good. Yes, yeah. I think we should do more of that. That was actually really, really good. It was well
super
done.
Fun. I loved creating that, and we didn't have to edit too much from Beery, but it was so great to chat to him. And he was in the shed, just like you were recently, Ben, in the shed, have a bit of peace and quiet time to do the interview. So we really appreciate that. He's good value, and I reckon we get him on. We've got more to talk to Beery about.
We just scratched the surface, as it were. Yeah, there's a lot beneath those foundations.
Did you mean to say you scratched the wet cement?
I did. I scratched my initials, which we know he hates. What I'm going to do, Beery, is post a photo of my concrete work here, and you'll just hang your head. You'll just be so disappointed. But it's also hilarious at the same time.
Yeah. So it was really awesome chatting to him. But also a massive shout out to Wendy Bywaters. We got another shout out in the High Marsh News. Yes. We're becoming regulars in that newsletter. It wasn't the most recent one, but it was the one before. So, yeah, we will have our own column soon. I reckon we could do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, just putting it out there if they're looking for extra content in the High Marsh News. But, yeah, that was really lovely. So, and that again blew up the internet. Internet's had issues recently
because of us.
Soz, not soz. Oh, that's so pathetic. But no, that was really, really cool. So we've also got something to announce just in the most briefest of announcements because it's
that concept.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a thought bubble at the minute. But, it's around cycling, it's around Hindmarsh, it's around maybe a charity event. So we're going to put it together and see what we can do for later on in the year. So stay tuned for that one, people. It could be called Tour de Hindmarsh, not sure, just putting it out there. But anyway, we love cycling, and anyway, it could be something fun to look forward to later in the year.
Absolutely. So today we have a really special episode. For those of us who are long-time fans of the show will know that we had the pleasure of talking to Andrew Kelso on ABC Wimmera a few weeks ago. And as soon as the interview ended, we said, okay, Andrew, now it's your turn. We want to have a chat to you. And he's such a friendly guy, such a great guy. He said, yeah, absolutely. So we had the pleasure of chatting with Andrew Kelso, and we'd love you to take a listen. So here it is.
We are super thrilled today to welcome our next VIP guest to the ESON pod. But today the tables are turned. Yes, that's right, folks. Today we have the pleasure of interviewing the interviewer. Today we have the honour of chatting with ABC Wimmera's radio producer, Andrew Kelso. G'day, Andrew.
Morning, Christy. Morning, Ben. Great to see you guys either side of Nil.
How you going today? How's life in the Wimmera?
Oh, it's wet today. It's rainy and drizzly, but it's typical kind of Western Victorian weather. Yesterday it was clear, and we put the washing out, and you'd go for a ride around Horsham, and there's washing all over the lines. And they've got a second rinse cycle today, which is good. But no, it's beautiful weather as always. It's not as cold as it was the last few days, which is nice. So, how are things in Melbourne and Adelaide, respectively?
Well, it's the same here, actually. We've had some really freezing weather and heaters on and rugs and blankets and everything and tracky-dacks. But today and yesterday have been sunny and pretty warm for winter. Yeah. So, yeah, we're the same here. It's beautiful, actually. Really nice.
Same. We've had rain overnight and it's been raining this morning. And I think the rain came early, and so I think this afternoon's going to fine up. So that will be really nice. We've had some sunshine too, which makes everything brighter. I actually don't want to rub it in, but I've just spent 8 days in Cairns.
Oh, wow! I can see the glow behind you at the window there, and it's I think just the sort of natural radiation of being outside Victoria. That kind of brings that glow.
Yeah,
sounds like you kind of do want to rub it in, actually.
Actually, it wasn't meant to come out that way. Sorry, but it was with work. It was with work. It was a big job that I was working on. But Cairns, and it was shorts, t-shirts, and it was just such beautiful weather. It was like, oh my god, I forgot how nice this is.
How was the adjustment coming back to Victoria? Do you have like a process for when you come back to the cold? Did that hit you sort of a bit?
Well, to be honest, I spent about the first 3 days in bed because I brought back a cold and not COVID, but a lot of people in the conference are now falling over with COVID. So fingers crossed I don't get it. But yeah, it was freezing cold Sunday night coming back into Melbourne. I think it was 11 degrees. Alrighty. Well, recently Ben and I had the opportunity to chat with Andrew on ABC Wimmera about the podcast, and we thought, how about we ask Andrew to join us for a chat? So let's kick it off. Let's find out a little bit more about this legend of the Wimmera.
It's a terrifying thought if I'm a legend of the Wimmera.
The Wimmera.
The second part of that is undoubtedly true, but it's such a pleasure to be here, and thank you so much for having me. Congratulations on the podcast, because it's so exciting, and people are talking about it. People in Nil and either side of Nil are talking about what you guys are doing and the podcast and shining a bit of a spotlight. But it's a pleasure to be here. So I suppose I came to the Wimmera in 2018 for this job for work, and I didn't know anything about it before moving up. I'm an Essendon supporter, so I knew that this was the Essendon's recruiting zone, and that was in many ways the main reason I took the job. But no, that was the only thing I knew about this part of the world, and I've just come to absolutely love it. And I mean, Nil, obviously, the whole area is beautiful, but Nil as well, in particular, is such a cool town, and as you've discovered, there's so much there to see and do. Any excuse to get out on the road and see Nil is always, much appreciated in our office. So it's a magical part of the world.
Hang on, let's just back up a minute. Yeah. You said you came to this job in 2018 because you hoped to be recruited to Essendon. Is that what I'm hearing?
When you put it like that, it's I suppose.
What's going on there? Are you still waiting to hear from the coach?
If Ben Rutten wants to call, I've got my call. I've never actually played a game of footy, and I don't really, I'm probably nowhere near fit enough to play even in the reserves. But I think, the way that the forward line's going, I can score. So that was really the only kind of thing I knew about the area, and of course, so many great legends of Essendon have come from this part of the world. So, during the sort of 70s and 80s, when that recruiting zone system was in place, they would each Victorian club, because it was the VFL, each club had like an allocated area of Victoria in the regions where they would recruit players, and it was a fantastic system in many ways because it meant that players from that part of the world would then, you could get supporters for that club even if they didn't live in Melbourne. So Essendon, there's a lot of Wimmera people out here that support Essendon because this was, the area where most of the players came from. Yes. And it also was a fantastic pathway for regional football and for, regional clubs, because it meant that there was that direct link to get into the VFL.
They still, that still exists here in South Australia. They do that with the Riverland and
Does
West
it?
Adelaide. And they still
Really?
have those same. Yeah, so if you go to the Riverland,
Wow.
then there's lots of people that follow West Adelaide, which is the black and red, the Bloods here as well. So the
Right.
same thing, just to give those regional areas a link to the SANFL. Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
Is Tim Watson from Dimboola?
Yes, that's right. Yeah, he's that was, and he still makes a big fuss about Dimboola, and whenever anyone asks him about his origins, he always talks about Dimboola. I understand that he comes back to the town a lot too, so he's from just up the road. But yeah, exactly, he's probably one of the Wimmera's favourite sons, and someone they talk about a lot. And certainly, even though he left, I think, to play at age 15 or something,
he was young, wasn't he?
Wow.
Yeah, but no, he's from there. Yeah, and quite a few from Nil too.
Wow. Well, there you go. Fantastic.
Okay, we need to dig a bit.
Dig a bit deeper for our sports episode version.
Kat Colbert, you need to pull your socks up, love.
Kat Colbert could probably put you in touch with a few of the ESON legends. She'd probably have seen them all go through.
She's probably got these ones up her sleeve, waiting for another episode, just to unleash. Oh, by the way, I know Alex Jezelenko or something. I don't know.
So, Andrew, as our listeners would know, you are actually host of the Breakfast Show on ABC Wimmera. How can you tell us how you got into radio and what your role is at the ABC?
Yeah, sure. So I really got into radio as a way of sort of forwarding writing. Like I always knew I wanted to do something, I suppose, in the media or in writing of some degree, and I wasn't exactly sure what. But I cannot talk highly enough of community radio, so that's how I got into it. And it was the Student Youth Network in Melbourne. So I should say I'm from Hurstbridge, which is just outside Melbourne. But
from that side of Neil, that's okay.
Even that side of Melbourne, you have to sort of have a divide between the people that are from this side of Neil and the guests who are from the other side of Neil, and sort of pit them against each other. But yeah, so I started doing Student Youth Network community radio, volunteering as a presenter and producer. Really, just as I said, just for something for some way of forwarding, looking at writing and exploring different avenues of writing. I got into that when I was in high school, and I think it's a bit of a weird sort of moment, because it was one of those things where I went to the information session at SYN, and they went along to find out about it, and they were so inspired by what they said on that night that I had it cost, I think the membership was like $95, and I had 96 in change in the car, and I was just that inspired. And at the time, I just thought it was an impulsive decision. It'd be a bit of fun, I'd always enjoyed listening to radio growing up. It was perhaps never something I'd always wanted to go into, but I enjoyed it and I thought it looked fun, and it provided a service to the community. And I went along and did a few shows there and just became hooked on it, really. And on community radio in general, I did a bit of volunteering at Triple R as well, but really SYN on 90.7 FM in Carlton, and could not speak more highly of that place. And through that, I sort of did a lot of produced the breakfast program and presented their breakfast show called Get Cereal.
I like that.
It's fantastic. It's amazing how long it takes. It was only really one season in before I actually realised, now I understand where the fun is. But they there's like a comedy show, an art show. The great thing about community radio is that there's so many niches, that they can fill, and it's a platform for anyone of any ability to get a chance to have a crack at doing radio, and through that as well, TV and journalism and other things. But that was sort of how I got into it, and I really dedicated a lot of time there, and I studied something completely different at uni. I never actually studied journalism or media or anything.
Oh, it's interesting. What did you study, Andrew?
Well, I actually studied screenwriting.
Oh, right. So that's kind of up your alley with writing.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. Exactly, and it was it actually came down to journalism or writing, what I wanted to do after I left high school, and I sort of at that point, I don't know. I think for one thing, RMIT was where SYN was, so it was easy to do the radio and study there at the same time. And at that time, it was sort of a weird time in journalism. There was a bit of a sense of flux, I think, and there's a lot of people saying, journalism's going online. The media's changing. It's a different landscape, and it was, to be honest, I went along to a lot of those information sessions for journalism, and I wasn't that inspired by it. but screenwriting, I'd heard really good things about this course, and it was a really good course. But in hindsight, I wish I'd done journalism, of course, because then I've ended up here and that. But and I it's just interesting reflecting on some of the things that they said in those information sessions, and how how hard how changing journalism is. Reflecting on it, having been here and worked here for a while, it's interesting just to look back on those things and that attitude back then when I was leaving high school. But anyway, so I through the radio. I then was sort of got to the point where I was looking to maybe get a job in radio. When I finished studying, I sort of wasn't sure what to do after that. But this job came up for 3 days a week in Horsham.
Oh, right.
And as I said, I didn't know anything about Horsham. I of course would have loved to work for the ABC and didn't really think I stood much of a chance. But I threw my hat in the ring to do a 3-day breakfast producing here, and then to my shock and initial horror, got the job and moved up here. And so I was actually commuting back 3 days a week for that first year. But that's how I came to be here in Horsham.
Wow.
And to answer your question about what a radio producer does, I guess it differs from place to place and organisation to organisation, and that was one of the interesting things about going from community radio to the ABC. Is, of course, every place has a different definition of what a producer does. But I suppose the main job title anywhere is really just to organise a program, really. So it's the same in TV or it's the same in film as well. A producer is literally just someone who produces a program or content of some sort, and same with podcast producers too. Who just all the admin, all the basics, but also finding talent and guests. Obviously, helping with the production side of things, so editing and recording and setting up interviews, writing scripts and intros and questions, particularly for live radio. So
okay, yeah.
So do you prepare all of that the day before? So you know what is going to be on the show the next day. So the day before you write, get obviously the content ready and organised and all lined up, or do you do it a lot of stuff on the fly, on the hop?
It is. It does differ a lot for day to day. Yeah, we certainly try and organise. Probably 75% of the show, and again that differs from show to show. But certainly, for breakfast radio in the Wimmera, and for ABC Wimmera, we really see our role as the chance to give people out here the news that they may not hear anywhere else, or events. So we like to really proud and really strive to be as kind of local as possible. But also with such a focus on news too, so you can't really prepare too much the day before. We often have a list of regulars that we have on maybe one regular a day. So I should say our program runs from 6:30 till 9 o'clock each weekday, with a break between 8 and 8:30, which is when AM is on.
Oh yeah,
and which gives us a bit of a reprieve, to sort of organise things a bit. And that, and we generally just sort of, probably prepare about 75% of the show the day before. Often, what's happening a few days in advance if you're organised, if when there's a council meeting on, where there's something happening, or if there's a meeting or an important event coming up, and also things that you can sort of do anytime because they're sort of long-running issues or long-running topics. But then on the day, we always leave at least one spot open for things that have happened overnight because, things happen in the late. It's amazing how much happens at the late afternoon and over the weekend, and often almost every single morning. I don't think we've ever had a day where we've had the whole everything is organised beforehand, and we come in this. Okay. We often have to call someone up at 7 o'clock, and the people out this way are fantastic. How incredibly generous with their time, and often we have to call someone at sort of 7 o'clock or 7:30 and say, "Oh, can you talk about this in an hour?" But it's the thrill of the live radio, and that's what I love about it. It wouldn't be the same without that in some way stress, but also the excitement of being able to make things on the fly, as I say. So. Yeah.
You just got to keep things going, don't you? Like if things go wrong, or a guest drops out, or something big major happens that you weren't expecting, you just have to be prepared to go with it as it's happening.
The day that we spoke to you, Andrew, was in fact the shortest day of the year. What's that called?
The solstice.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And we were talking to you on that day, the shortest day of the year, and you were also talking to your meteorologist.
Oh, yeah.
And there was this banter that went on, and it was absolutely hilarious. And I think she was going for a swim.
Yes. Oh, that was, I can't remember who, was it Miriam Bradbury for the Bureau of
Oh
Meteorology?
yeah,
She's a legend.
yeah. It was really funny, and then we came on after that. So in my notes, I wanted to talk to you about that on the day, but we ran out of time. But that was the shortest day of the year. That was hilarious.
So, well, thank you. I think it's amazing how much of a fuss was made about the shortest day of the year. What did you two do for the shortest day of the year this year? Do you sort of celebrate the solstice?
I got up super early to talk to this guy on the radio. And then I think I went to work, Andrew, and that was about the extent of the day. It was freezing, and you know what I did? Because I didn't want to wake the family up because it was quite early. So I actually went out to the shed, which is kind of semi-insulated, but
Did
it was
you?
so cold.
Wow.
So I was actually out in the shed.
That, Ben.
Yeah,
Oh.
I was in my shed talking to you on that morning. So
That must have been freezing.
my jackets and
attracted a few strange glances from anyone walking past your shed at 7:00 on a Thursday, hearing these voices coming out of this glow.
yeah.
So you talk. Go ahead, Ben.
Yeah, we haven't stopped interrupting each other. It's terrible. No. Well, I was just going to say that one of the standouts from our podcast has been learning about the community, and particularly the volunteers. And it's a very community driven area. We've certain things like the lake and the silos and all these sorts of things that simply just wouldn't be there or wouldn't be in the state they're in without community support. Can you share some standout things you've come across or your sense of that, not just in Nil, but the sort of that greater area? You see that as well?
Oh, totally, 100%. You totally hit the nail on the head there. There are so many things that, particularly when you've been out here for a while, you just discover. And like you were saying about how you've talked to people and you uncover those hidden gems and those people that have got great stories to tell. I mean, it's almost, you could go all day just talking about the things off the top of my head where you wouldn't necessarily know it's there, but there's an amazing gift shop, or there's an amazing, attraction, or there's an incredible person with an amazing story. Every single little town, if you sort of visually try and picture the area, you can those towns are defined by those little quirks. And if you head around the area, obviously you've got things like the stick shed in Matoa, and you've got, in Nil, you've got, so much there to see. You've got the aerodrome there, and the incredible shops and things. It's but yeah, in terms of some of the specific things that stand out, I guess one thing that one place that always stands out in my memory is Mafeking in the Grampians, which is the strangest place. It's absolutely, if you ever, next time you're out in this part of the world, I would definitely recommend head up to it. It was a mining town there that ran from 1901 to 1910, and it literally was described as Victoria's last gold rush, because it was essentially this kid from Ararat rode up into the Grampians, found gold in a stream, rode back to Ararat, and then to claim it and stake his land and get some tools. And by the time he got back, there was something like hundreds of people already up there.
Oh no!
It's huge. There was a coffee palace, there was a theatre, there were shops and a school and a bit of a logging sort of mill as well. And yet you go up there, and obviously tens of thousands, or more than 10,000 miners, and you go to the site there now, and it's nothing. There's no foundations. There's no sort of junk lying around. They did have, I think, the bushfire came through in the 30s, I think, and wiped a lot of stuff out. But it's so strange. There's this great information board there, which has these amazing photos of just people, the place teeming with people,
really,
buildings. And now it's just like the bushland in the Grampians, and there are mine shafts which they've covered up, but that's the only sign of anything out there. It's a really isolated spot, sort of in the eastern Grampians, sort of on the Ararat side. That's one place that always stands out in my memory, and you wouldn't know it was there unless you'd sort of unless you're told about it, really. But it was, again, just a colleague mentioned it, and we sort of said, "Oh yeah, we'll have a look." And yeah, it was absolutely mind blowing.
Fantastic!
How about that?
Wow, I
super
didn't know about that
interesting.
one.
Yeah,
incredible.
So coming from Melbourne and moving to a country town might have been different. How have you? How has that adjustment been for you? You've been there for a few years now, though.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's interesting to see that, and because Hurstbridge, like the town I come from, Hurstbridge is sort of it likes to think of itself as sort of semi-urban, semi-rural, and it's in the Nillumbik, which is the Green Wedge Shire, out sort of past Greensborough. So it is already quite rural and green and lush, but it's certainly not rural. I mean, it's not sort of regional like the Wimmera is, and I guess it was interesting to see some. You obviously have a bit of an idea of stereotypes for an area when you go there, and you think, country life, and also with the massive tree changer movement that's coming now, you start to think about the sort of what the real country Australia is and what to expect. But like we were just talking about then, about the fact that there's so much, so the area of the Wimmera isn't one sort of generic area with one generic identity. There's every town has its own sort of microculture and an amazing history and identity of itself. And I think that was one thing that, in terms of adjusting, that really struck me, is you can't sort of you go to Hopeton, or you go to Beulah, or you go to Dimboola, or you go to Nil, you go to Stawell, anywhere in this area, and there'll be a lot of similarities, but each town is completely unique. So I think that's probably one thing that really struck me, when I first came out here, and took me, it was like the adjustment, but it was a really nice surprise.
Hey, sometimes when we're doing our podcast recording, see, we have the luxury of not actually having to do it live. So if we mess up, then we just smooth that out, and we often get the giggles quite a lot. Does that happen to you on air? Does it ever happen with regular guests or something where you've got to try and hold it together, but you're live and it's a bit more pressure?
So all the time, and particularly when someone says something inadvertently funny, or inadvertently might say something that they didn't mean to say, or they say something that sounds a bit. I probably can't really say on air any of the specific examples, but I'm sure you've also experienced moments when you've said accidentally sworn, or you've not necessarily said a swear word, but you've accidentally said something that just sounds totally out of context, or taken out of context and sound really weird, and the guest laughs. It happened a few weeks ago, actually. The guest laughs, and then you sort of can't acknowledge it, but you also can't. You have to sort of. You also don't want to just let it go completely. And there are a lot of times when we put on a song and just have a laugh, or the opposite. We just sometimes thinking it's a really powerful guest, and they've said something really quite moving or quite touching. You just sort of think that it often takes you a second to do that, but getting the giggles is such a symptom of working in audio, I suppose.
That's been a real it's been something really funny that Ben and I have experienced. And in our most recent podcast, we were talking to Kat Colbert on the new tennis clubhouse at Nil, and the way she described it, it came out wrong, and it's actually a really beautiful. I've seen the photos online. The beautiful tennis club's being rebuilt, but she kind of said, "Oh, it's going to be like a tin shed."
A big shed.
And then I absolutely lost it, and I had to kind of just like walk away, and Ben and Kat kept talking. But yeah, sometimes we have just totally lost it, and sometimes Ben, when he's doing the editing, will leave them in, and then sometimes bits of it gets cut out.
Lucky I don't know how people in TV do it, because you can't do that in TV. You have to, you can't. There's absolutely nowhere to hide, to walk away and have your laugh elsewhere. So exactly. It happens all the time. It's that is very funny to describe that as a tin shed. I'm curious to see what the tin shed looks like. I'm
sure they don't think of it as a tin shed. Actually, it was really beautiful. It's all being set up, the frameworks up and everything. Talking about comedy, this is a beautiful segue into a little bit of the history. So we know you also have a passion for comedy, and in 2017 you had a show at the Melbourne International Comedy Festival. Are you able to tell us a little bit about what that was like?
I can't believe that you managed to find it. I thought I'd just lead in every resemblance of that on the internet that existed. I really love comedy, and doing that show was amazing. It was a bit of an experiment, and it was sort of just a chance to try what it's like to do a Melbourne International Comedy Festival show. But I've always had a real passion for history too, and I sort of was thinking of a way to a show that kind of combined those two passions for comedy. I got into stand-up the same way that I got into radio, in the sense I just wanted to have it as a vehicle for writing, and this just was something fun, an extra thing to do to fill the time, and an extra skill, practice other skills. And I did that in a course in 2013 when I think I was 16, and then did that. So by the time I did my show in 2017, I'd been doing stand-up for about 3 or 4 years, and it was a really great experience. I enjoyed it so much, just the thrill of having to do, not just, a few minutes at an open night gig, but having to do it, for an hour show, or nearly an hour show, for like 2 weeks on end. There are definitely things I'd do differently, but
wow.
And I was still pretty green, and I don't know if I'd ever want to go back and watch that. I'd be more cringing than laughing, which is probably still the case with my stand-up. But there's, but the idea was, because with the history, I did like a virtual tour of Melbourne, which it sounds really trite on paper, but it was really it was interesting to sort of put it together and not make it trite. But it was basically just like, a chance to sort of talk about weird things I noticed around Melbourne and I guess just living here in general, living there in general, and living in the city. But as a chance to talk about other things. Just if nothing else, the title I hope would just sort of set it apart a bit, because it's an amazing thing that Melbourne International Comedy Festival has hundreds of shows. Do you get to many shows? Christy, do you sort of get out there?
Yeah, I haven't in the last couple of years, but have been to many comedy festival shows, and it's such a, it's on the world stage. This comedy festival goes throughout the whole of April.
Oh, it's huge.
It's absolutely huge. Ben and I have been to them together in the past, but and it really gets lots of exposure and media, and there's the world leading comedians are here for that event. So, and your show had like rave reviews and it sold out. So bravo to you, because that's really that was amazing. Yeah. So
I suppose there's some similarities with stand up comedy and live radio, because you kind of have one shot at it, and it's you being you. I mean, stand-up comedy is you, but it's a version of you, I guess, and so is radio in a sense. So do you get the nerves with the stand-up comedy that you don't get with the live radio, or do you still get those same nerves? How do you manage? Do you get nervous before you have to perform?
And are you nervous now?
Definitely, extremely.
So nervous.
At least here I can pull out an internet cord and say, "Oops, connection dropped out." So that's, you can't do that on radio or on stand-up.
Classic Kelso, people. Classic Kelso.
But no, exactly, you're too right. That's the thing. Like that's so, and I guess you probably find as well with podcasts. It's radio is definitely less stressful than stand-up, because you haven't got firstly, you're not necessarily expected to be funny. In fact, in many cases, you're probably better if you're not. And
secondly, reading the news.
That would be not a good thing to not a good tone to adopt for the news. Oh, that'd be so we should do that one time just to see what happens. Exactly. So much like that. So that's one thing, and also like you say, Ben, the fact that you haven't got a live audience in front of you. You can hide, you can play a song, you can play a promo. It would be very awkward if you tried to do that during a stand-up show. So I still get really nervous I'd still get really nervous performing stand-up, and I don't, because since moving to Horsham, I obviously haven't done it as much. I never was, never considered myself, a proper stand-up comic, and used to do it all the time. But I'd probably used to do on average maybe a month, like a gig a month, and I was particularly towards the end of when I was in Melbourne, I probably started to do, gigs for, universities and events and things like that, which I really enjoyed, more than just going to like a stand-up room and performing. One thing I did start in 2017 was my comedy. I started running a room in Hurstbridge.
Oh wow!
I call Comedy at the Anglers Club, which is still going, and that still runs once a month. So I really love that, and can't talk more highly of the people that run that room. They just do an incredible job, and that's so weird. In Hurstbridge, which is quite an arty area, to have that, to have stand up. They literally just said we really want we want to get some comedy going out this way, because we've got all the other types of arts, and we'd like to get that. Would you be interested in helping us do something out here, comedy wise? So that runs once a month on the last Thursday of the month. But that's really the only gig I do now, although occasionally do an exception, I do a few other gigs. But one thing, just on that note very quickly, and sorry to keep waffling on, but on that note, just to bring it back to Neil, one thing I really, would love to see and have seen a little bit of is stand up in the regions,
Yes.
And I mostly do comedy at the Anglers Club, and that just gives me a good excuse to keep having a crack at it once a month, and just keeps those skills warm, and it's just a fun thing to do. But one thing I did recently perform to sort of help run a workshop here in Horsham, which was so much fun. And the thing is, anywhere, often there's so many great comedians who are from the country, and there are even a few that have come from the Wimmera, and like Dave Hughes, Will Anderson. They come from regional Victoria, not the Wimmera, but I think Dave Hughes comes from Warrnambool, and Will Anderson comes from Sale, and they often have to move to a larger centre to really pursue the comedy. And if you look at even music or art, there's around the Wimmera, Mallee, there are so many fantastic galleries. Go to most country pubs, there'll be live music on stage on a Saturday or Friday night. There's great local musicians out this way, like Morris Conway and Danny Walsh, who have written some fantastic songs. Alice Skye, who's an astonishing artist, and she's from Horsham. And,
Oh,
you
wow.
know, it's great that they've got those platforms. And I'd love to see, you know, in the dream, you know, would one day be to try and, you know, to see the same kind of thing happening in the country, see stand-up
Yeah.
comedy becoming just as common a thing that you can see in places like Nil as you can in Melbourne.
Absolutely.
Have you
I'm
seen
totally with you there.
Have you seen the Byron Bay Festival that's on at the minute? It's been absolutely flooded out.
Yeah, that's extraordinary, isn't it? That would be.
Unbelievable.
I mean, they actually saw a headline somewhere which is Splendor in the Mud, which is
It's horrible. Oh,
terrible.
Yeah.
It's awful.
Maybe maybe we could put our heads together and build something for Nil. You know.
So, I reckon JPEX Park. You could set up that in such a way that they have you know, got the sound show down there. There's you could put up a few tents and stuff. I reckon they could almost host Splendor in the Grass. But you're right. Have you ever been to Splendor in the Grass? I've never been to a music festival, but no.
I've been to a couple of outdoor festivals, and I'm not really a big fan. I went to the what was it called? I'm not going to be able to think of the name of it now, but that was in regional Victoria as well. And it'll come to me. No, I don't think it runs anymore. It was on a private property. I will think of it. I'll think of it, and it'll come back to me. But I love the idea of regional comedy. I think that's fantastic. And there's some really good comedians here in Adelaide who, because I like to do a bit of stand-up comedy myself.
Oh, fantastic.
In the stand-up open mic rooms myself. And there's some great comedians who will go to the regions. The 3 or 4 of them will just go. And Fiona O'Loughlin, she's originally from Adelaide, from South Australia. She'll often come and do a few gigs, and so she's actually in Adelaide at the moment, and she's been doing a few gigs, and she'll go to the regions with a guy called Mark Ryan, who's otherwise known as the Beautiful Bogan, and he is a beautiful bogan. He's a great guy, and he goes on the road quite a bit. So yeah, I totally agree with you. We need more arts in the regional areas. So absolutely.
Well, maybe, we've got 2 people right here. We could look at the bones of something.
Now, speaking of Christy, you were going to ask Andrew for some advice.
Oh, yeah. Andrew, I can't. I'm always saying and then when I listen back to the podcast, it drives me nuts. Any tips? Any hot tips?
You've both got a fantastic presenting style. I personally, as I can just demonstrate there, I'm absolutely no expert when it comes to editing out ums and ahs. To be honest, the only tip I'd give in getting rid of ums and ahs is editing. It's just you can't do in a conversation, sadly. And if you can invent an advice that does that, I guess it's talking slowly, and that's the thing I still struggle with a lot. And so I should clarify, I'm sort of a fill-in presenter, but our main presenter is Rebecca Lowe, and she does a fantastic job. So I'm her producer and fill in for her when she's not here. But we've got a lovely office here and a really great rapport, and Rebecca is an amazing person, and it's so great to work with such a great colleague and friend. But she's such a good presenter, so watching her is always good. And I think just talking slowly is probably the biggest thing to defeat ums and ahs.
That's a really good tip. Yeah. As we kind of wind up and get to the end of our conversation today, there are a couple of things we do need to chat to you about. But the first one I wanted to talk to you about is, in doing my research for our interview with you today, I Googled you, right? And then all these amazing things came up. So I just want to put it to you, and you don't have to, you can deny it if you like. But Andrew, when I Googled Andrew Kelso, you have been on stage at Disneyland. You have been a professional wrestler.
Oh, yeah.
You have been performing in an Elvis gospel concert. And also, Andrew Kelso has starred in the onstage version of Kinky Boots. So, deny or not, it's up to you.
It was a very busy week. One of them is true, and the others, I'm not going to tell you which one. I don't know what I've never done that. That's bizarre. I'm just alarmed that there's that many Andrew Kelsos in the world.
Yeah.
The weird thing is, so we're actually having this conversation yesterday. There is actually another Andrew Kelso in the Wimmera. I was hoping that I would at least be the only Andrew Kelso this way. And a few people say, I think he works at Graincorp or works at one of those companies. I've actually tried to track down the other Andrew Kelso, but to no avail. I think he lives he might even live in Nil. we live somewhere in that kind of way. But yeah, it's a full credit to him. But that's the only other Andrew Kelso I've ever come across. I don't think I could do any of those. Maybe wrestling, the second one, but not professional wrestling.
Wrestling in pinky boots, maybe combined two.
On stage at Disneyland while singing Elvis songs, I suppose.
That's right. Exactly.
Pinky boots.
Bring it all together. Absolutely. Yeah.
Ultimate Andrew Kelso.
Yeah. Legend. Ben, have you ever Googled yourself, Ben? Because I have, and I've got a real estate company in the US.
Yeah,
that's
right.
a pretty good haul. Does that mean you can sell houses over there?
Oh, probably. I'll give it a crack.
Wow. That's a great. What is like high-end real estate?
Yeah, I don't think so. Not by the looks of it.
Amazing.
She's got one of those hairdos. What are they called? Like middle manager hairdos?
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to Google now.
Focus, Andrew. Focus.
Sorry.
So, Christy, what was the other thing we were going to talk about? Was it Tour de France?
Yeah, we were going to talk about the Tour de France, and it's finishing up this weekend, and Ben and I absolutely love it. Do you follow it at all?
Yeah, not quite so closely this year, but Australians have been doing pretty well, haven't they? I think won a number of stages. And,
yes.
So if you ever do you sort of watch it every year and stay up late? Watching it. Yeah.
So, basically turn nocturnal for the month of July, so ready for a bit of a break. It's hard yakka, but it's been fantastic. And this year's been an absolutely brilliant Tour de France. It couldn't have been scripted any better. It's lots of storylines, and there's been some great rivalries that have sort of come out this year. So it's been an excellent Tour de France, Ben.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's absolutely right. Yeah. I'm the same. I'm probably sleep deprived, which is why I'm via satellite right now. I'm just a couple of seconds behind. Sorry about that.
But there is talk of very early discussion about setting up a charity ride, a Tour de Hindmarsh, that we're thinking of. We're in the very, very early stages of discussions with one of our amazing contacts in Nil. So if it does come off, are you in?
100%. Yeah, I'd probably if it's not competitive, if it's prize money, I probably wouldn't be able to do much. But I certainly, I'd actually do the Little Vic, which went around this area earlier this year.
Oh, did you?
A spin-off of the Great Vic bike ride. Yeah, that was so much fun. That went from originally it was actually supposed to go from Rainbow down to Halls Gap to Dunkeld, and then out to I think Ararat, but they had to cut it short due to COVID, so they did this kind of spin-off thing, and it only went from Halls Gap to Dunkeld, back to Halls Gap, then to Great Western. But yeah, the cycling, there's so many great places to cycle through the Wimmera. It's such a beautiful, beautiful part of the world, and it's it's flat. There's always things to see.
Yeah,
it's pretty safe. If you take back roads and things.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, so no, Tour de Hindmarsh.
Yeah, sounds good, right? Fantastic. Anyway, we'll keep you posted on that. So, Ben, how about you ask Andrew the most important question of all? You know what it is.
So we're coming to the end of our interview, Andrew, and it's been great to chat to you and get to know you, and thanks so much for your time. Before we do ask you to give us any promotions or plugs for what might be happening in the Wimmera coming up soon, we'd like to know what is your standard fish and chip order?
You asked me that on air a few weeks ago, and I really was totally taken aback, and I literally had to only think to that previous night's dinner, which was a bit embarrassing, which was flake and two chips and dim sim, two dim sims, piece of flake and chips.
That's a classic.
But the other thought, though, I had this thought after we did that interview. You always order the minimum chips is like the standard chip order at any fish and chip shop in Australia. Can you order a maximum chips? That's what I'd like to do at some point. So that's what I'd like to do at some point. What are your fish and chip orders?
Well, we kind of tend to go chicken and chips because I don't know, it might be unique, but South Australia, SA has fish and chip shops, but they do lots of chickens. I'm sure that's probably not unique to SA, but we'll often get a chicken and we'll get medium chips, so we don't max out on the chips, and we don't sort of get too stingy. We'd like to have the medium chips, and maybe a coleslaw or a salad.
Oh, right.
What about you, Christy?
I always go grilled flake, steamed dimmy. I like to get a bit of everything, so then I like to get a scallop and maybe one or two calamari rings, and also potato cake, and then minimum chips. And I like to. It's a lot. and then like there's so much grease, everything's like greasy, face is all shiny. But yeah, no, I bloody love fish and chips, and and I only like fat chips. I don't like the small little crunchy bit chips.
You want the big ones, yeah. Fantastic.
Yeah, so that's
sounds very healthy. It's quite fat. Even just it actually does sound pretty fresh. And you do get the taste of the fish a lot more, I suppose, if you grill it rather than batter it.
Yeah. No, absolutely love it.
Missed everything else that came after it, though. Potato cakes. There is actually out this way. I think it might be a bit of a Wimmera, weird sort of local food legend. That's you could do a whole episode. I think you have done a whole episode on local cuisine. But one part of that is this mysterious thing, which is I think it's called a memento or something, and it's a cheese and bacon potato cake. Next time you're out this way, try and find it. It's sold at a lot of rest stops and servos out this way, and it's just basically a loaded potato cake, but it's still a potato cake. It's still got the potatoey inside.
That sounds beautiful.
It is amazing. It's a meal in itself.
Christy's pupils just dilated.
Oh yeah, I was just like computing that, like potato cake with cheese and bacon either side. Yum. Oh my god, that is so good.
On a cold day.
Fantastic. All right, Andrew, we really appreciate you taking the time to be a part of our podcast. You are an absolute hero of the Wimmera. We love you so much, and thank you again for taking the time to come out Saturday morning to chat to us.
Well, likewise, it's been such a pleasure. It's so great listening to you guys, and congratulations on getting it going. You're discovering some amazing things and really celebrating this wonderful town. So any time, it's been such a pleasure.
Excellent, Ben. I absolutely loved chatting with Andrew. I think I just declared my love for him. Was that bad?
You did.
I just said I love you.
He's okay with that. It's all right.
I'm friendly. But anyway, that was really good. I hope everybody enjoyed that interview, and we're definitely going to be chatting to Andrew again in the future. So, it was really super fun. So as we come to the end of this amazing podcast, Ben, why don't we discuss what's happening in Melbourne and what's happening in Adelaide and Melbourne, we have the International Film Festival coming back, which is great. So it's going to be in real life, which is fantastic. So it's in August, and it's a lovely midwinter celebration of cinema. And this year it's going to be bigger and better than ever. So check it out on the Melbourne International Film Festival website. That's mif.com.au. And, go along and support some of the films that are coming out. So I know I will be. We've got a local cinema that I love going to. So what about you, Ben? What's going on in Adelaide?
Well, Illuminate is still on, and it's on to the end of July, which is actually, from where we're recording now, a week away. So there's so many great things happening in the Botanic Gardens along North Terrace. There's some regional stuff. There's a whole the Adelaide Zoo. There's all these incredible shows. So just check out Illuminate website and get along and see it, because it's just really cool. Seeing places like the zoo and the gardens at night, all with these light shows is amazing. So check that out. Illuminate Adelaide. It's not on for much longer, so make sure you get along. I think last time I said to people, it's going to be cold, so wear a jacket. I think that's what I said last time.
Take a
Rug
brolly.
up, people. That's it. Take a brolly, take a scarf, get out. But that's what's happening in Adelaide, amongst other many, many things. But 2 more stages of the Tour de France, so we'll be staying up trying to check out the time trial tonight. And
sure will be.
Back to normal sleep soon.
Oh, man, I can't wait. All right, Ben, that's excellent. Thank you so much for listening, everybody. We've absolutely had an awesome time on this podcast, and we'll see you soon. Have a great weekend.
See you later.